What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kenahan. It's been a week, took a week off for the bye week, ended up not doing an NFL draft episode, but we're back now with a preview show for Washington's Week 15 matchup against the New Orleans Saints, 1 o'clock on Sunday. It's going to be a good one. Washington, I believe, is like 5-point favorites, I want to say. So Washington is heavily favored in this one by a good amount, and for good reason too, because I guess we'll just jump right into the injury report because this is probably the big headline throughout this week. Starting with New Orleans, I think the big news for them is they're going to be without Derek Carr. He had a left hand injury, plus he's dealing with a concussion as well. In last week's game for the Saints, he kind of took a hard fall on one of his scrambles, so he's most likely out for the season, which is kind of a big hit for a Saints team that doesn't really have much going for them anyways. But so no Derek Carr. Jake Haener will be the starting quarterback out of for the Saints on Sunday. Haener, the second-year player out of Fresno State, a former, I believe, 4th or 5th round pick. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes because so far his career hasn't been, let's just say, top tier. And deciding Haener over Radler is certainly an interesting choice. I know Radler has struggled so far this season when he played, but it's certainly an interesting choice. Makes me wonder if Haener does struggle at some point, will Radler get some playing time? So that's the big news for the Saints in terms of their injury report. Some other guys that are not going to be available or maybe won't be available for them. DeMarco Jackson, the linebacker, is dealing with an ankle injury. He hasn't practiced all week. And I think another big one here, Alvin Kamara is dealing with an illness. He did not practice on Wednesday, did not practice on Thursday. His status is currently up in the air for Sunday's game. If I had to make a prediction now, I would say he will probably play just because he's more of a veteran. He's been in the league a long time. He doesn't really need to practice as much, really. So I still expect him to play for the Saints on Sunday. But that is pretty much it. Oh, Bub Means as well. Wide receiver for the Saints. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He was limited on Wednesday, did not practice on Thursday. So not a good sign for the Saints there. The Saints so far this season, like I mentioned, it's been a big struggle for them. They've dealt with a lot of injuries, but also the team is just not there. The team has really struggled so far this season. Currently sitting at 5-8, third in the NFC South. You've had Carr injured, Olave's been on injured reserve, Rashid Shaheed's out for the year, Taysom Hill out for the year, no Ryan Ramczyk. Like, this team is beaten up. Paulson Adebo as well, Rajon Wright. Like, this team has been beaten up this entire season, and after a 2-0 start, the team has definitely taken for a turn for itself. As far as Washington's injuries, the big news for them, there's been two pretty big stuff. One of them being Marshon Lattimore has been a full participant on both Wednesday and Thursday. Expect him to play and make his Washington debut on Sunday. That will be fun to watch as he's going to be making his Washington debut at the Caesars Superdome, where he's played for the past, 5-6 seasons. So that's some big news. That's some big news there. So Marshon Lattimore will be making his Washington Commanders debut wearing that number 23 he took from Chris Rodriguez. So Lattimore's all good to go. Noah Igbinogheni's been dealing with the thumb injury. He's all good to go. Jordan McGee, elbow injury, all good to go as well. Dante Fowler with a groin injury. He's all good. Zach Ertz is all good. Jamison Crowder activated off injured reserve. He's been practicing this entire week. We'll see if he gets put onto the main roster before put onto the main roster before the game on Sunday. But that'll be interesting to see if he'll be good to go, because another big news is Noah Brown, or the Commanders wide receiver 2 for much of the season so far this year, is out for the season with a kidney injury. Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter said that this was an internal injury, or it was it was Dan Quinn who said it in one of his press conferences. It's an internal injury, which not exactly sure what that means, but listed as a kidney injury. Hopefully he'll be all good to go for next season. And as he hits free agency, I believe, after this year as well. So wishing him the best in terms of his recovery, but expect Noah Brown to be out for the rest of the season, which also means KJ Osborne. Will he be activated? Washington claimed KJ Osborne, the former Minnesota Viking and New England Patriot, off of waivers this week. Will he be good to go for Sunday's game. That'll be interesting to see. Will Jamison Crowder be good to go? There's a lot of questions surrounding the back end of this receiver room. How much will Noah Brown's injury affect Washington? We'll have to wait and see. But as far as the injury report goes, Washington is pretty much mostly healthy beyond Noah Brown and beyond the guys on injured reserve. Quan Martin's been limited all week. We'll have to see if he's going to be able to go. I expect him to be able to go. He's still been practicing. Cleveland Farrell was limited on Thursday after not practicing on Wednesday, I believe due to rest. But we'll have to see if he's good to go. I assume he will be. But yeah, so Washington's injury report, most of the guys coming off the bye week are all healthy, while on the other side for the Saints, missing their starting quarterback, missing their starting receiver, missing 3 of their starting receivers, actually. Bud means on injured reserve. So missing 3 of their starting receivers. You've got Marquise Valdes-Scantling, Kevin Austin, and Cedric Wilson are going to be the top 3 guys Jay Cannon will be throwing to. We'll dive into more of that, but that does not sound fun if I'm a Saints fan. Let's just move on to the offense now. Look, this Washington offense matches up really well against this Saints defense. The Saints so far this season, one of the worst rushing defense teams or run defense teams in the National Football League. They're 30th in rushing EPA. They're 30th in rushing success rate, allowing success on 44.7% of runs, which is a lot. I mean, that's third worst or third highest in the league. On the other hand, Washington's rushing offense has been one of the best in the league. Second in rushing EPA and second in rushing success rate, succeeding over 45% of the time. And one of, I believe, only 5 or 6 teams with a positive rushing EPA as well. So the Commanders' run game is a strength, one of the best units of football out of any unit in the entire league. The Saints' run defense, on the other hand, is not very good. You're going to be running into Nathan Shepard, Kalen Saunders, Brian Brzee. I guess you could say John Ridgeway and Chase Young revenge games here, but neither of them really move me. Christian Boyd hasn't really gotten a lot of playing time. Carl Henderson and Cam Jordan on the outside. This front 4 is not good. One of the worst units in football for the New Orleans Saints. So expect Washington to take advantage of that, and I expect a pretty big run game. The Commanders are coming off their best rushing game of the season 2 weeks ago before the break. Came against the Tennessee Titans. It was let me pull it up right now, but I believe they ran for over 200 yards on the ground. Brian Robinson had over 100. 267 yards and 3 touchdowns for this Washington Commanders offense, averaging about 6 yards per carry. That is very good. And coming against one of the better rushing defense teams, led by Jeffrey Simmons and those guys for the Tennessee Titans. Now you're going to be playing a pretty bad run defense team for the Saints. I expect potentially 300 yards on the ground. This is going to be pretty brutal for the Saints front 4, going against Brian Robinson and company. Now, also, again, no Austin Eckler. Once more, there's no timetable on Eckler's return. God, I hope that he recovers quickly off his second concussion on the season. But I wouldn't expect him to play. It doesn't really sound like he's going to play for the upcoming weeks, potentially even the rest of the regular season. So, again, more pressure now on Jerry McNichols and Chris Rodriguez in that backfield. They've lived up to it, and they delivered against the Tennessee Titans. McNichols had 6 carries for 32 yards, and Chris Rodriguez had 13 for 94 and a touchdown. So these guys delivered against the Titans. We'll see if they're going to be able to deliver again against the New Orleans Saints. Meanwhile, the passing game for the Saints, they're one of the better units in football. Dropback EPA, the Saints defense ranks 7th. Dropback success rate, the Saints defense ranks 9th. On the other hand, though, the Commanders offense ranks 4th and 9th in those 2 categories, dropback EPA and dropback success rate, succeeding over 50% of the time. So this is a good Saints secondary that is also, you gotta look at it in terms of the last few weeks, because they lost Marshon Lattimore, right? And they lost Paulson Adebo. So you've got Alontae Taylor, who's, I guess, solid. Kool-Aid McKinstry, the rookie, is now lining up on the outside or in the nickel as a rookie. So he's kind of been thrown into playing more than maybe the Saints kind of thought he was going to play at the beginning of the season. You also got to look at your head coach was fired, Dennis Allen. So there's a lot of factors going into the last few weeks. Let me try and bring up where this team ranks in just the last few weeks on defense, because, like I mentioned, there's been there's a big difference between having Marshon Lattimore and Paulson Debo in that secondary to now. I mean, in the last 10, like since week 10, they're still in the top 10 in dropback EPA. Yeah, so I mean, this unit has still been solid in the last few weeks, even after trading Marshon Lattimore and company. So, yeah, they've been really solid actually in the last few weeks. So, good stuff from them. Good stuff from them, and from the rookie Kool-Aid McKinstry. That'll be fun to watch. Seeing the rookie out of Alabama, guy who I was kind of higher on than most. I had a first round grade on him, but again, he kind of is a liability in that run defense. He wasn't good at it at Alabama, and it's kind of played a role. I know it's not just him; it's the front four and the front seven overall, but he's played a role in why the Saints' run defense is bottom of the league right now. So that's also something to monitor. Overall, though, look, this is one of the best offenses in the league going up against a pretty mediocre defense that is solid in the pass, but really struggles against the run. Washington has been one of the best all season in being able to run the football. There's been only 1 or 2 games where they've kind of struggled at it. But again, going up against one of the worst run defenses in the league, I expect them to run all over the Saints, really. And score points quickly, early, controlled time of possession. I expect a pretty dominant performance here from this Commanders offense against the Saints defense. So let's flip sides of the ball, go to the defense now. Like I mentioned, for the Saints, Jake Haener will be under center. Haener, I believe, will be making his 5th or 6th start, I believe. Let me pull it up. But I believe it'll be his 5th or 6th start on the season. Yeah, let's see, because Carr was out. Yeah, 2nd start on the season, and then last year didn't. Okay, the stats are bugging right now, but Haener, the former 4th round pick back in 2023, will be making this start for the Saints against the Washington Commanders. Look, this is a backup quarterback getting thrown into a situation against a pretty poor defense. So you could say this is great for him, but look, he's not going to have his wide receiver 1. He's not going to have his wide receiver 2. Not going to have his wide receiver 3. Ryan Ramczyk is out. This Saints offense has been beaten up all season long. Washington, who has struggled in the first half of the season defensively and has kind of gotten to about just below mediocre right now. You're kind of sitting in the early 20s, like the 20 to 25-ish range in most categories for this defense, 24th in EPA per play, with the highest being dropback success rate, where you're ranked 19th. Like, this defense has gotten better in recent weeks, but still not even top half of the league. I think this is a good opportunity for this Washington defense to take advantage against a backup quarterback who has gone thrown into a struggling situation, an interim head coach with missing a lot of your weapons, potentially even your running back as well, Alvin Kamara, who may or may not be limited or out with an illness. This defense can build up confidence and build up momentum going into next week against Philadelphia and into the final stretch of the season, because the Saints are a team you should beat. You beat the Saints. I mean, the team already has a 70% chance, or about 70% chance, to make the playoffs. But if you beat the Saints, you're moves up probably to 85 or 80%. So this is a game that Washington should win. The defense, I know they've been bad this season, but hopefully with the return of Marshon Lattimore and the debut of Marshon Lattimore, the secondary steps up. I'm going to be really interested to see what effect Marshon Lattimore has on this defense. Can you leave him one-on-one on an island on one side of the ball? How will it be able to benefit guys like Benjamin St-Juste, guys like Mike Sanders still, who have been playing on the outside but have needed more safety help and more double teams against some of these wide receiver ones? But now you can put Marshon Lattimore up against, I guess, Marquise Valdes-Scantling or whoever the Saints have out there as their wide receiver 1, and kind of leave him on an island. And then you only have to worry about guys like, I'm bringing it up, guys like Kevin Austin or Cedric Wilson, Dante Pettis. I mean, this wide receiver room anyways is just beaten up some of these names, Mason Tipton, like some of these names are not are not great at all. So I expect the secondary to be pretty solid against this Saints wide receiver core. Tight ends, again, it's a young quarterback, and like I say, the quarterback's best friend and whatever is their tight end, especially a young quarterback's best friend. So Juwan Johnson, who's questionable right now, but Foster Moreau, Dalen Holker, no Taysom Hill for the New Orleans Saints. But I wonder how much the tight ends will play a role, and how much will Jake Haener look to target the tight ends, especially early on in the game, to try and get some quick completions. Can guys like Bobby Wagner, and it'll be interesting to see how much Jordan McGee plays on defense. Sit out there in coverage and make some plays against these tight ends. I expect them to be able to do so, but I could also see a game where Juwan Johnson goes for like 7 catches for like 65 yards and be the leading receiver. So we'll have to wait and see there. The run game, though, for the New Orleans Saints, it will be interesting. Alvin Kamara, of course, can be a weapon in both the run and the pass. Kamara, depending on if he plays or not, he's a major part of this offense, especially as some of these top weapons like Olave and Shaheed went down over the course of the season. Kamara is taking on a big workload. Trust me, like my fantasy team, he's taking on a big workload. So it'll be interesting to see how much Kamara plays. If not Kamara, though, Kendre Miller, the second-year running back out of TCU, who looked good last season before going down with a season-ending injury. He's come back. He's healthy now, and he was great last week for the New Orleans Saints. And the time that I was watching the game, let me bring it up. But last week, 10 carries for 32 yards. He scored a touchdown. So we'll see more of Kendre Miller, I feel like, especially with Kamara kind of being sick this week. Plus, I think they want to incorporate more of their younger players like Miller into this offense and see what they can do, because whoever the coach is next for the New Orleans Saints, I don't think it's going to be Darren Rizzi, who's the current interim head coach, but whoever the coach is next, they want to see, are these young pieces worth keeping? And Rizzi will probably want to see as well, are these pieces, he's going to be trying to go for the win, but he's also going to try and get as many guys out there as possible, because at 5-8, third in the NFC South, this Saints team is pretty done. They're pretty done. But in terms of up front in the trenches, this Saints offensive line against the Washington Commanders pass rush, the Commanders generated a good amount of pressures on Will Levis 2 weeks ago. I expect them to kind of get all over Jake Haener. If you're able to pressure Jake Haener early on in this game, make him feel uncomfortable. I mean, you're going up against guys like Cesar Ruiz, Trevor Penning, Lucas Patrick, Eric McCoy, and then rookie Talizi Fuanga as well on the left tackle. This is not a good offensive line unit. I think Washington's pass rush can take advantage. One thing I'll be interesting to see is Daron Payne. He's been quiet a good majority of this season. Will he be moved after the season? Potentially by Adam Peters because of guys like Johnny Newton. But how will Johnny Newton, can he start getting active more in the pass rush? He's been solid in run defense so far this season, but can he start breaking through some of these interior guys? I know it's harder for the interior defensive tackles to generate pressure and get to the quarterback, but it'll be interesting to see what they can do there. Plus, the guys on the outside, can Dante Fowler continue his absolute tear that he's on? Top 5 in sacks right now in the league, or top 10, I believe. So, what can Dante Fowler bring against these younger offensive tackles that the New Orleans Saints have? Plus, guys like Dorrance Armstrong, who's been kind of quiet the last few weeks. What can he bring as well? So I'm excited to see some of these younger pass rushers and guys like Johnny Newton as well go up against a weaker offensive line. Can they generate pressure on Jake Haener? Will Haener be forced and feel like he has to hold the ball longer as he's trying to process his reads against guys like Marshon Lattimore in that secondary? So I think this is a great opportunity for this pass rush to continue their success. They got a lot of pressure on Will Levis, forced him to make some incomplete passes. Can they do the same here against another young quarterback making, I believe, his like 3rd or 4th start in the league in Jake Haener? So that is something else. Now to wrap this thing up, final score prediction or final thoughts here before we go to the score prediction. Look, Washington's team is a whole lot better and is in a whole lot better position than what the Saints are in right now. I expect Jayden Daniels and this offense to run all over the Saints team. On defense, I expect a dominant performance from Marshon Lattimore, maybe even an interception. You know what? I'm going to say bold prediction right now. Marshon Lattimore gets his first interception as a Commander in this game against the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to say it right now because I could totally see Jake Haener throwing up a meatball under pressure, Dante Fowler in his face or something like that. He throws up a meatball. Maybe it gets tipped in the air or something, and Marshon Lattimore comes down with it. So I'm excited for the Marshon Lattimore debut. That's probably what I'm going to be watching the most on defense. And then on offense, expect this team to run all over the Saints defensive front because they match up very well against them. But yeah, final score prediction, Commanders 32 or 33, I think. Commanders 33, Saints 10. I expect dominance from this Washington team against the New Orleans Saints. They have shown this season that they can dominate the weaker competition, and I expect them to do it again against this Saints team. Have a lot of confidence moving on to a pretty big game next week against the Philadelphia Eagles. Massive game in terms of where Washington will be seated in the playoffs, and if they can continue to try and make a run at an NFC East division title, they'll need some help as well as being the Eagles. But if a loss to the Eagles in 2 weeks, you're pretty much out of it. So that'll do it for today's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. The next episode will be out on Monday. But yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys in the next one. Peace.